All right. I gotta talk about it, I think. So, a few months ago, you'll remember I did a video, and this is one video that people actually watched, funnily enough, about the Young Turks, the news network, where Ana had a meltdown on Twitter over something that didn't happen, as is the case for most TERFs. And I said at the time that it could be, like, it could be the case for TYT more broadly. At least I said that, I think, in response to a couple of comments I got, because there was some information I wasn't privy to. Now it seems that it is definitely the case that TYT has started to move to the right, pretty definitively to the right. And the funniest thing is that a lot of the catalyst for this, right, like, one of the accelerating factors here, this was by no means an inciting, like, the inciting incident, was Vosh calling Ana a retard, which is very funny to me, because it's indicative of the kind of fragile white woman liberalism that I guess TYT really represents. You know, if you're gonna get upset at being called a retard to such an extent that you change your entire politics, or you cite that as a reason for changing your entire politics, I don't think you belong on the internet. I'm gonna be frank. And the reason I say that is not necessarily prescriptive, like, oh, it's always okay to say the word retard or whatever, because it's obviously an ableist term. But let's be real. If you went to middle school at any time between the 1980s and 2010, or even nowadays, you've been called retard, and, like, you know what that's like. You know, so it shouldn't be some sort of, like, world-ending traumatic thing. And I will go further and say that it actually isn't for Ana. She's just performatively putting on this big old dog and pony show to sort of justify her leaving the left. Literally, the meme, leaving the left. I guess, it becomes really relevant now that that meme started with somebody who actually left TYT. Because the archetype of that is, oh, the left is being really mean to me, but the right wing is really nice to me, so I'm hanging out with the much nicer right-wingers now, since the left is a bunch of meanies. Oh, cool, I dodged shock. Alright. But part of this meltdown, like, a lot of the meltdown that we're seeing out of TYT is sort of like a shift rightward both on social and economic issues, while sort of maintaining the populist aesthetic, or at least trying to. Kind of the same way that Jimmy Dore and those types did, funnily enough. As ironic as it may seem. Or poetic, I guess, in this instance, since a lot of those right-wing grifters came from TYT. And at the time, I didn't think that was necessarily indicative of TYT's moral character, because they left TYT to become right-wingers. But now it's, kind of gets cast in a new light. Keffels did a really good video essay on this. I think if anybody's interested in a deep dive, I think everybody would do well to check out Keffels' video. Oh no, I feel so bad for that Funky Kong. I shouldn't have done that. And it seems like the shift rightward is largely concentrated around trans issues, because that's the hot button social topic of the day, And I think, unfortunately, it does ultimately come down to a big grift. They're sort of playing at this idea. I want to dispel this notion for anybody out there who watches TYT. They're playing at this notion that in order to make economic progress, you have to ditch the social issues. You have to not talk about the social issues, and you have to stick to talking about the economic issues. Which is not true. This is borne out in the data, in like polling data and things like that. You do not have to do that. In fact, it's better when you talk about social issues that are very widely agreed upon. For example, abortion is one area where Republicans lose massively because people in the United States understand that abortion is part of prenatal reproductive health for women and for trans men, and it is like integral basically to a developed country, and so even the right wing can't get any big W's on that one. Like in the states where referendums happened on abortion, even right wingers came out to vote to protect abortion rights. That's one thing. And then on trans rights as well, the Republican Party is rabidly anti-trans in a way that's just not reflective of what American people believe. You could go and see polling data that even a lot of Republicans, most Republicans, are okay with trans people existing and think that the whole, oh, the transes are coming for your kids narrative is, like, overblown. This, like, what TYT is disingenuously arguing is losing ground here is winning ground. And I think they know that. You know, both of them are pretty smart people, Cenk and Ana. And I think they know that they're, like, not in the right on this one to a certain degree. You know, I give them the credit of at least being that smart. And I will maintain my my belief that I think what happened at TYT headquarters or whatever is that Ana got a really nice paycheck from a right-wing media group, like right-wing media org. You know, like that Daily Wire money looks pretty good. I know she's on personally decently positive terms with Ben Shapiro. You know, them having had debates that weren't like all too mean, and TYT's been engaging in some like really bizarre civility politics. You know, I mentioned Ana freaking out over being called a retard. Like, that's just not something politically useful to be freaked out about, right? It's like, especially as a purported news person at like a major nominally progressive media org, you got to show a little bit of professionalism in the face of that kind of thing. Like, you know, really, you're gonna get up in a knot about every mean Twitter comment calling you a slur? Come on. I'm bagging. That was not a good pull. Really disappointing to see from TYT. One of the bigger things as well, they've turned around on like economic issues such as drug rehab and drug decriminalization, and particularly homeless issues. Ana has gone down the tough on crime route of argumentation against the decriminalization of drugs, and you know, very apt critiques of her coming from the left on Twitter that she is deathly scared of homeless people. Clearly never had an innocuous social interaction with a homeless person, and also never been able to separate her individual sensibilities from her political prescriptions. Basically, she's a white woman who doesn't know how politics works, is what I'm saying. And ultimately, I think it's that wealthy white woman privilege, or at least the nose for money, the desire to seek financial stability and security above most everything else that is leading to TYT behaving like this. Because we know from other progressive commentators and from other like parts of the media circuit that this is how people go to the right wing. It's not that they have a genuine change of heart, it's that they decide to start grifting because it means they get a substantially better paycheck, which means they'll be able to make their mortgage or make rent every month. You know, purely a self-interested thing, but it's also very, very harmful. You know, it throws a lot of people under the bus, as it were. So ultimately, I think that it's an appropriate time for people to start saying, you know, it's been a good run, TYT. You've done a lot of positive things for the left. Like, inarguably, they have been a force for good in the past. But nowadays, I think like people would do well to seek their news from elsewhere, from better sources. Possibly the worst offender, I think, in the case of TYT, is their pivot on the issue of trans people in sports. That, like, there was a falling out between TYT and one of their former trans employees who left because of transphobia and transphobic discrimination they faced at TYT. The resulting feud exposed that TYT, like, had a pretty blatant disregard for the preponderance of medical data that does exist on the issue of trans people participating in sports. And, you know, I'll readily admit, that doesn't mean that we have a very complete picture. You know, a lot of the data is like, kind of preliminary, or it's like, this is a relatively new thing. And a lot of the research emphasizes further studies are needed. But right now, it looks like after trans people have been on hormone therapy or whatever for this long of a period, their hormones are perfectly in line with their cis counterparts, and there would be no, like, significant competitive advantage or disadvantage competing in the sports with the gender they identify with, rather than their sex assigned at birth. And the actual, like, tier of argumentation that TYT used to, like, refute that was Jank saying, I'm a guy and I can, like, bench however much. It was like some anecdote about, like, men are just built different. It had no data to back it up, pretty much. You know. And it's really unfortunate to see. Because, again, they are smarter than that. They do know better. It's a pretty disingenuous line of argumentation. One last thing about TYT, and then I'm done. I kind of felt the impact of this on an emotional level, because, like, for myself specifically, but also for a lot of other people, TYT was sort of a vessel for people to get into progressive politics, and they're really not that anymore. And I think the funniest, although kind of one of the most tragic examples of this, is that they, like, not only did they pivot on all these different kinds of issues to the extent that Ana now sounds like Tucker Carlson when she's ranting in her segments, they also have a VDS, like, big time. Now, I know some people in my audience might not be huge fans of Vosh. I've encountered some comments from people who seem like they probably wouldn't like him that much. But Vosh and TYT have been having a discourse back and forth and whatever. And, again, going back to Vosh calling Ana a retard, it seemed like that really went to Ana's head. And what I mean by that is they like, TYT actually did a bunch of live shows, or not a bunch, like, there was, like, a couple of live shows that TYT did where they actually gave a substantial amount of airtime to the like, that discourse specifically, which, again, like, it's not just unprofessional, it's also just massively petty. You know, I would expect better from a professional grade, like, news organization, you know? But I guess with TYT we don't really get that. I guess if I have to introduce a silver lining, I always feel like I do, because, like, there's so much bad shit going on. I guess this could be taken as an indication that TYT is no longer really necessary for progressive left politics, which is a good thing, right? Like, it means that progressive beliefs have become mainstream enough that, you know, there doesn't need to be just the one news org that's pushing all of these ideas forward, you know. It's just that they still have a lot of influence with the platform that they do have, and they could do a lot of damage. But there are some good people in their orbit, like the Majority Report, Humanist Report, Kyle Kulinski, all those people. I know this seems like drama to some people. I got some comments to that effect. I revisited the other video just to see what my coverage of the discourse was, to add some new stuff. And the response I have to those people is that, like, I hear you, right? it's internet politics. There's always going to be a degree of drama involved, right? But I think that you have to be pretty severely misunderstanding the issue to think me commenting on the state of a major news org is online drama, you know, because TYT is a big YouTube channel with 5 million subscribers that does news on the daily. It's a part of the online political machine, as much as CNN or NBC or ABC is a part of the cable TV political machine. And I think that, like, that on its own is enough to necessitate talking about when something big happens in that news org. Like, for example, everybody was talking about when CNN had new leadership under that one CEO that decided to do more right-wing propaganda and less fact and evidence-based reporting. It's kind of like that. Oh, nice. Ooh, how did I do that? I just eyeballed that. So yeah, now that race is done, to wrap it up, it might seem like drama bait, but ultimately it's, I think it's useful as a warning, you know? Don't engage in the logic that TYT is engaging in here, because it can be pretty dangerous. And it leads to political positions that are demonstrably harmful to the most vulnerable groups of people, you know? To people who are afflicted with drug addiction, which we ought to be treating like a disease and not some sort of criminality that's a result of moral failing. Stuff like transphobic logic which led TYT to argue against trans people in sports, and also, you know, ceding ground more broadly to the right wing by saying we should not talk about trans issues and queer issues in general. And generally, like, just generally not being a well-researched news org, you know. They claim to have their finger on the pulse and whatever. You know, statistics and data shows people don't agree with them. People support trans rights. And in fact, people will vote. People will turn out to vote enthusiastically if they believe that trans rights are on the ballot to be protected.